Hey y'all, join me in Dakon's Bakehouse where I bring food from video games to life. Link in the description. Hey there, lunatics. Today we are going to go over the melee skill. So let's go ahead and get started. The melee combat tree consists of 9 potential skills that you can learn. The first of them everyone is going to gain, and that is Quick Strikes. This gives you a 2% boost to your melee attack speed per rank, up to a total of 10% melee attack speed at level 5. Next, we have got Building Anger, where you gain a 2% melee damage every time an enemy is hit, stacking up to 2 times per rank, increasing to a total of 10 stacks at level 5. Next is Fast and Furious, where you gain a 2% chance on melee hit to increase melee attack speed by 50% for a short duration per rank. This increases to a 10% chance on melee hit at level 5. In the third skill tier, we have got Heavy Swings, which gives you a 3% chance to knock back on melee hit per rank at a total of 15% when you reach level 5. Next is Stubborn Fighter, where you gain a 3% melee damage when hitting the same target successfully. This increases per rank to a total of 15% at level 5. The final skill on the third tier is Taking a Step Back, where you gain a 4% chance on melee hit to increase your range damage by 30%. This increases per rank to a total of 20% chance on melee hit at level 5. In the fourth tier, we have got Seething Blade, which gives you a 10% chance on melee hit to restore 1% health. This increases to a total of 5% health when you reach level 5. And the final skill on the melee tree is Strength of the Ancients, where you gain a 4% damage boost against bosses per rank, increasing to a total of a 20% damage against bosses at rank 5. There are multiple different ways that you can put together your melee skill tree as you level up. Here are some examples, but these are by no means the only possibilities. This layout here is my default and what I usually do for 90-95% of my melee builds. I've got 5 ranks of Quick Strike, as well as 5 ranks in Building Anger and Fast and Furious. I then continue down to Stubborn Fighter and finish it up with Strength of the Ancients. This gives me a lot of melee damage boosts and a huge boost against bosses. This build works really well against general creatures, and it works very, very well against bosses. This layout here starts off with Quick Strikes, then moves down into Fast and Furious. On the third tier, we've got Stubborn Fighter, and then it finishes up with both Seething Blade and Strength of the Ancients. This is the kind of layout I would use if I was going for a lifesteal build, because you want Seething Blade for that 10% chance on melee hit to restore 5% health, but you don't really want to sacrifice Strength of the Ancients as it's extremely useful on bosses. When it comes to the most expendable of the melee skills, Building Anger is probably the most expendable, as it's most useful against bosses, since by the time you reach the end game, most of the enemies should be dying in 1 to 2 hits anyway, with maybe a few exceptions at about 3 hits. As a result, you're not really going to stack and build Building Anger all that much against general units. This skill becomes mostly advantageous for bosses. So I'm willing to sacrifice this so that I can gain that extra life steal. Now this layout here goes down primarily the right side of the tree, where I gain Taking a Step Back so that I can also increase my ranged damage. But I also am still getting all of these major damage boosts, again keeping Strength of the Ancients, and it is probably the most useful of all of the melee skills, and it is useful for both melee and ranged. If you're playing a build that kind of hybridizes melee and ranged attacks, you're going to want Taking a Step Back so that you can get that extra range damage. And because of that, again, I'm sacrificing Building Anger for the same reason, as it's mostly useful with the bosses, but Taking a Step Back will give you that extra damage boost that you would also really get from Building Anger. You're just going to get it on your ranged attacks instead. This layout is a good layout for those who are struggling and die a lot, or maybe someone playing kind of a hardcore character, because taking a step back is kept here so that you can do melee and ranged at the same time. But you're also taking heavy swings so that you get extra knockback on your melee hits. With this, you are essentially pushing your enemies further away from you and then taking that extra step or two backwards and switching over to ranged damage. This is more of a defensive playstyle, and you are sacrificing a lot of damage potential from doing this, but it definitely creates a safer kind of play, which is very useful for hardcore characters or people who just find themselves dying a lot. Whatever build you choose to go with, you will find lots of useful skills within the melee tree, and there really aren't any skills here that are truly invaluable. Each one has a purpose and a use factor. Now let's talk a little bit about melee gear. Melee is probably the most versatile playstyle when it comes to having different sets of gear, as there is a lot of gear that is melee focused in this game. A lot more than I'm going to talk about in this video. Briefly, I do want to talk about what I see as the most common aspect that most newer players tend to do, and that is they tend to just go down the anvils and grab the latest version of whatever set of armor the anvils have. Now, there are some times that is useful, like at the very beginning, the copper set here, while it doesn't have any bonuses, it's a good early game armor, and for your very first set is actually probably a good choice. However, take a look at the bronze set here. This helm provides mining damage, not melee. That doesn't really help you much. Then we have got the bronze breastplate, which, yeah, does help you for melee, but then the leggings are based on ranged. So unless you're playing both a melee and ranged build, this bronze set is really not that good. Yeah, the bronze helm is great for mining, but that's mining. And while there is this skill on the mining tree called Miner Strength, which gives you 10% of your mining damage added as melee damage, you're not going to have this skill at the point in the game that you are crafting the bronze helm. So there is no point in crafting the bronze helm for your melee set. Craft it for your mining set, but not for your melee. Same thing with these bronze pants. Wear the bronze pants for your ranged set, not for your melee set. When you get up to iron, you will notice that the bonuses are pretty much just damage related. And this is the first set that has actual set bonus, and it's a pretty good set bonus. So this set of armor is really good to use for early game melee, and I actually highly recommend that players try to push toward the iron set as quickly as possible for the most early game damage. The Scarlet set is also actually a pretty good upgrade for melee users. You have a good 3-set bonus. In addition, these all provide bonuses to your critical hit chance, which means this armor is actually useful for melee or for ranged, or even for magic users, as critical hit can be very, very useful. This makes the Scarlet set extremely versatile and extremely useful to use. The Octarine set, however, is a lot more like the Bronze set. We've got the helm that does mining, we have got the chest plate that does melee speed, and we've got the pants that do ranged attack speed. Completely skip the Octarine set. It is not going to help you when it comes to your melee. The Galaxite helm, however, will. It is a lot more like the Scarlet set, as it gives you critical bonuses, as well as a pretty good set bonus, which gives you extra damage while at maximum health. You'll find this useful for ranged, melee, magic, whatever. Definitely useful for your melee set. And finally, the Solarite set is specifically designed for melee users. So melee users will find an advantage to using this. You get this critical hit boost, but you're also going to get life on melee hit, and you get that on pretty much every single piece. Now, admittedly, there are some pieces of life on melee hit armor that are better than the Solarite ones, and some of them you can actually get pretty early in the game. For example, the best life on melee hit chest piece is actually the Dracularva cape, which you get from the Halloween events. But that doesn't mean the Solarite set isn't good. The Solarite set is actually a great set. So if you are a melee user, you can just go down the armor sets here, but Be careful, the bronze set and the octarine set really should be skipped. Otherwise, if you want to keep it simple and easy, just go down the anvil and get whatever set pieces you can find. The Pandorium armor is also technically melee focused if you look at its 3 set bonus, but to be honest with you, the Pandorium armor really is just Urschleim focused. Its goal is to give you the ability to dodge and to increase your movement speed so that you have a high chance of being able to actually take on passage enemies as well as that Urschleim boss. So if you aren't really working in the passage and doing stuff there, the Pandorium set really isn't that great as you're sacrificing a lot of general damage for the movement speed and this set bonus. Now, I'm not going to go over all of these, but here are some examples of various other melee items that you can find throughout the game from either boss drops or various other random loots that can be really advantageous to you that aren't specifically crafted. There are lots and lots of different types of armor, whether it's chest pieces, legs, head, etc., that you will find that you can get a lot of use out of from the early game all the way up to the late game. So when it comes to accessories, things are still really broad for melee users. Bags are a little bit more tightly bound. You've got Gorm's stomach backpack and the Scarlet Shell backpack. There's also Morpha's bag if you reach the end game and you've got that mining skill that I mentioned earlier, the miner's strength. That will improve your mining damage a bit. It's actually why the orb lantern is also pretty good of a choice because it adds that mining damage from a lantern standpoint, which improves your overall melee. When it comes to necklaces, there are a lot of choices. You can craft the copper cross necklace or the iron chunk necklace, as well as their polished versions once you get to the later end game. But really what you're looking for is anything that increases your melee damage, anything that gives you a good boost to your armor, anything that gives you a good boost to damage or your critical hit rate, your maximum health. I really like the glass bead necklace for that extra critical hit damage. So there are a lot of good choices, but you really have to find most of them. The grub egg necklace is one of my personal favorites, and you get that pretty early in the game in the hive subbiomes within the clave caverns. And as long as you level it up, it can last you pretty much until endgame. Rings are also very similar. You're looking for anything that increases your critical chance. Thorns is good, boosts to your damage, boost to your crit, boost to the melee, anything like that. There are a lot of good options when it comes to this. Anything that increases your attack speed is also useful. My personal favorite is the glass bead ring, or maybe even the Atlantean worm ring. These are all really good choices. But in the early game, the Wild Warden ring is probably going to be one of the strongest that you can get your hands on. And for accessories, you can never go wrong with the shield. When you're a melee user, any of the shields work really, really well. My personal favorite is the Sentry Shield, which you'll get in the Metropolis areas within the Sunken Sea, but you can honestly use any shield. If you're looking for something that gives you a little bit more defense, Azios's Dash Feather is great because of that dash boost that you get, or the Turtle Shell for the reduced damage from bosses, as well as a good boost to your armor. If you're going for just raw boosts to your damage, then Omeros Beak is really, really strong as it provides the best physical melee damage boost. But you can also get the Crystal Meteor Chunk later on in the game for just a general 22% boost to any kind of damage that you deal. The Oracle deck is also useful from a defensive standpoint, as well as the Trinity Heart from a defensive standpoint, as it provides a good boost to your armor, health, and healing. Any of these are excellent choices when it comes to accessories for the melee user. You really can't go wrong. And let's end this entire section by talking a little bit about the melee weapons. You've got a variety of different choices when it comes to your melee weapons. We've got swords, we've got daggers, we've got axes, spears, and clubs. There's also the poisonous sickle, but that kind of behaves more like an axe in many ways. Swords are very easy to craft and they are versatile. You can just make a sword at any of the crafting benches and steadily upgrade if you prefer to use swords. You can't go wrong with any of the sword options, all the way from wooden to solarite. They're all solid choices. Swords have just a very basic swing, though. They hit 2 tiles in front of them, and there's really nothing else that they do. Daggers are also excellent weapons, and in my opinion, the ritual dagger is the best of these. Just level this thing up as you go, and you'll never need to replace it. Daggers give you kind of a little movement as well, as you move a little bit forward each time you stab, and you're always stabbing at 1 tile in front of you. So you have to get really, really close to your enemy, and you're going to get pushed toward your enemy as well each time you use this weapon. So I don't recommend using daggers if you find that you die all the time. Daggers are kind of like the advanced melee weapon for people that really want to get into it, but also aren't afraid of getting hit, or are really, really good at avoiding damage after they attack. Axes are my personal favorite when it comes to melee weapons, and out of all of the axes, the battle axe is the best. The battle axe levels up the best out of all of them, and the battle axes function similar to that of swords, but they hit 3 tiles in front of them instead of 2. Battle axes and all other axes also have a secondary attack, which gives them a much wider swipe, hitting, I believe, upwards of like 9 or even 12 tiles in front of them. It is a really, really strong weapon. Next, you've got spears. And I think the best spear is the prehistoric crystal spear, but I'm using the hunting spear here because it's early game and you can level it up and use it really well. It will hit for 2 to 3 tiles in front of it, and you can charge up the attack to do a dash forward and hit multiple tiles in front of you, upwards of like 9 or even 12 tiles. You can get a good leaping strike by doing this. And then finally, we have the clubs. My example here is the Larva Spike Club, which is pretty good as well, although I think that the Crystal Club, which you get later on in the game, is probably the best. These clubs function similar to axes, as they can hit 2 to 3 tiles in front of them, but sometimes they will hit 2 tiles forward as well as 2 up and 2 down, giving you about 4 to 6 tiles that it'll hit. And also, depending on the club, it may or may not have a secondary ability as well. One of the nice things about clubs is that they have a really fast attack speed for what they do. I also want to give a special shout out to the Pipe Club, which is the slowest of all of the clubs with only a 1.3 attacks per second, but its damage is absolutely insane, especially compared to other weapons of the appropriate level. If you find the abiotic factor crossover scene in the Forgotten Ruins, you will get your hands on this Pipe Club. And Pipe Clubs are so freaking strong. It doesn't have a secondary attack, and it only hits its 2 to 4 tiles in front of it, but it will pretty much one-shot any enemy that you come up against. So I definitely recommend grabbing the Pipe Club if you are a fan of club weapons. Then there's also, of course, Stormbringer. We're not going to talk about Stormbringer. Melee benefits from quite a few pets in this game. During the early game, I recommend the Subterrier or the Embertail. And the Subterrier is good because of its taunting ability when you have low health and low armor. It just provides that extra little bit of defense as they can pull taunt, and that makes them very, very useful. The Electro Pet is actually very similar to the Subterrier, and if you find the abiotic factor scene in the Forgotten Ruins, the Electro Pet is also a great pet for melee users during the early game. The Fan Hair is also very helpful because it is a ranged one, as well as the Embertail being ranged, and this gives you the poison ability with the Fan Hair, and that can be very, very helpful for melee users. But ultimately, I think most melee users will end up using the Owl Lux. The Owl Lux has a variety of skills that are very, very useful for melee, including critical hit, boosts to physical damage for melee, as well as melee attack speed if you get ones with the right skills. Boost to critical damage is also really, really nice. There are a lot of very good skills that will buff the player with the Owl Lux, and ultimately buffing the player is often more useful in this game than having a pet that just buffs itself. So once you've moved on from these early game pets, really you're probably going to end up with an Owl Lux, and just you're going to want to find an Owl Lux that buffs your melee abilities the best. Usually I like to pick either what I'm very, very good at already. So if I've got a lot of melee damage, getting a pet that boosts that melee damage just even more. Or sometimes it can be very useful to pick up a deficiency. Like if I'm using a very slow attack speed weapon, having an Owl Lux that has a lot of skills that boost my melee attack speed can come in very handy at that point. Really, it just is going to depend on your playstyle, but that's what makes the Owl Lux so useful, is it's full of a variety of different skills that can help your melee build out a lot. When it comes to buff food in the early game, you've got a variety of crops and fishing that can help a lot. This is a set of food that I have built over time that I find very helpful. When I combine the carrot and the rock jaw together, I get boosts to both my armor and to my physical melee damage. The marbled meat and the shiny larva meat, or if I don't have a lot of shiny, the regular larva meat, gives me boost to my critical hit chance, boost to my general damage, and life on melee hit. The heartberry and the pink palace fish provide me with boost to my melee attack speed, as well as additional maximum health. The bomb pepper and the blue cave guppy can provide me with boosts to my movement speed, as well as damage against bosses and a magical barrier. And remember, magic barrier is essentially just free hit points. The Grumpkin is very useful, as well as the vampire eel, and these can give you boost to your mining damage, as well as life on melee hit, and a boost to damage against bosses. Honestly, I think the boost to damage against bosses comes from a cooking skill, not from the food itself, just as an FYI. All of these food items here, whether it's the fish or the crops, can all be found in the early game before you defeat the first 3 bosses. You just got to make sure that you spend some time fishing up in all the different waters. Fish are actually really, really useful in this game, and as much as I hate fishing, I have to admit that you definitely don't want to skip it when it comes to Core Keeper. Fishing will give you some of the best food buffs, and if you're struggling, then get those food buffs, because food buffs can really make the difference on a boss fight. As the game progresses and you get into the mid and late game, then the mold shark is really, really good, as it gives you a really strong boost to your melee damage. You've also got the gray dune tail, which gives you a boost to your melee attack speed. Then there's the Terra Trilobite, which gives you a huge boost to your mining damage. The dark lava eater, which boosts your life on melee hit. The crown squid, which gives you a huge boost to your knockback. And then the solid spikeback, which gives you a thorns ability. All of these fish are fished up either in the Desert of Beginnings or in lava biome, except for, I believe, the mold shark, which is found in mold water. The crown squid may be found somewhere else too. I don't remember. Oh yeah, the Terra Trilobite is found in passage water. When I reach late game, I'd just like to combine everything with golden bloat oat, because the bloat oat basically just provides a boost to my food and a boost to my healing for a few seconds. And so it just doesn't get in the way of any of the other buffs. Very useful little item for generic kind of food buffs. To quickly level up your melee skill, there are a variety of things that you can do to help it along. My personal favorite method for leveling up pretty much any of my skills is one of the oldest methods available, and that's the Hive Mother. If you can, place down some conveyor belts to kind of push enemies over toward you, but if you don't have the ability to craft conveyor belts yet, don't worry about it. Craft yourself a little island like this, and make sure you have got one section where the ground tiles and your little island are touching diagonally. This will give you the ability with your melee to actually reach the enemies. And then go ahead and grab a ranged weapon really quick and aggro the Hive Mother so that she starts to channel and create those little cocoon ads. If you get her to a point where she's enraged, she will spawn 2 cocoons at the same time. And that's really what you would like ideally. Personally, I recommend unequipping any of your gear so that you are basically doing the least amount of damage as possible, because melee goes up by 1 melee point for every time you hit an enemy. And if you hit multiple enemies with a single strike, you're still only going to get 1 experience point. So it doesn't benefit you to hit multiple enemies. It also doesn't benefit you to kill these enemies very quickly. So what you want to do is you want to go either with unarmed or with a fast melee weapon, like say the rusty dagger, for example, because that has a very low damage output, but a very fast attack speed. So either take your rusty dagger or go with unarmed and just start swinging at these various mobs, and you will steadily start gaining melee experience points. If you happen to have any soul abilities, make sure you turn them off before you do this, as it will interrupt what you're doing. But as you can see here, I'm just going to swing for a while, hitting these guys. You will periodically gain vitality every time you kill an enemy, and that can be very helpful for you as well. But the main goal here is raising your melee skill. And as you can see, after just a few seconds, I've already gained 4 points of vitality and 3 points of melee skill. This one takes several hours to complete, but it is a very simple method that will raise both of your skills up all at once. So I definitely recommend this, as it is like I said, my personal favorite way to handle this skill gain. There are faster ways though. Another excellent way to gain melee skill is by attacking Shroomin Brutes. I like to capture one of them on a single tile so that he's got space all around him, but with one tile that is touching diagonally. And with that, I'm able to actually sit here and just start punching the heck out of my Shroomin Brute, or if I want to use the dagger, I can stab him like crazy as well. Probably better to use the dagger in this case rather than your main hands, because the dagger has a faster attack speed, and you're going to do the same amount of damage whether you're using your hands or you're using this weapon. The only difference is the dagger loses durability and unarmed doesn't. So if your dagger runs out of durability, you can always just switch to your unarmed, or if you're doing it AFK, being unarmed works really, really well in this instance. This is, in my opinion, the fastest way to gain melee skill. However, you're not going to gain any vitality skill because you're never going to kill your Shroomin Brute. And as you can see, I gained several points of melee very, very quickly in that moment. Alternatively, if you do have a materializer, you can put a Shroomin Brute figurine into a materializer, and you're going to need a wall because there's a wire under here. But then you can also summon your Shroomin Brute and do the exact same thing that you were doing before. It'll work the exact same way. But this also gives you one advantage, that if for some bizarre reason you actually do manage to kill your Shroomin Brute, then it'll automatically respawn this way. And otherwise, it works exactly the same as the other Shroomin Brute farming method. And that is everything for this video. If you have any questions or comments about leveling up your melee skill, just leave them in the comment section below. I love to hear them. If you haven't already, please be sure to like this video, subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet, and be sure to check out more of my other wonderful little video content. I love making videos for you guys. Until next time, stay happy, stay healthy, stay crazy, everybody.